Hey friends, welcome to another episode of the Everything is Marketing podcast. On this episode, we're talking to Justin Livingston. He is the Vice President of Franchise Development for Unity Road.
Cannabis is different. Compliance is different. Even getting a license to get into the darn industry is different. And all of those come with hurdles that the average Joe just can't overcome. And so for us, the advantage is kind of at its core of all of franchising, but specifically with cannabis, if our job is to help navigate the complications, and cannabis has more complications than anybody else or any other industry, we have a collective 120 years of legal cannabis experience and almost 50 of franchising. And having that depth of bench behind you to navigate those complications, I just don't know how you do it without that.
And we are talking about franchising in the cannabis industry. And my guest today, as I said, from Unity Road, Justin, how are you, my friend?
I am good, buddy. How are you?
I am excellent. As you and I were talking off air, we both spent some time at Grand Valley, so it's nice to talk to a Laker about the cannabis industry. And so I want to talk briefly kind of the origin story of Unity Road, because it's an interesting story that leads us into some other questions that I can't wait to get into. But if you could kind of give us your Marvel Comics origin story of Unity Road, that would be awesome.
Yeah, I was bitten by a radioactive spider. Oh, no,
love it. I love that you're rolling with the theme. I love it. Yes.
So for us, it was about combining these two industries, right? So a lot of our team, myself included, our background is franchising. And franchising is duplication, brand, recipe for success, customer experience, the same experience from one location to the next, right? And so the cannabis world is so new and so fresh and so amazing that it doesn't have any of that. And so for us, there was two paths to really do this. One, to bring that consistency, to bring that branding and be a pioneer in doing that to the cannabis world. Also to bring the amazing average unit volumes and things into the franchise world. But then really at our core as franchisors, it's about creating a roadmap. It's about showing people the way to get into a business, and the hurdles that are in cannabis, as I'm sure many have found, are extraordinary. And even people with really robust business backgrounds and retail backgrounds, they get into cannabis and they're like, whoa, it's complicated. I say it's complicated 7,000 times a day. And so for us, it's about helping people kind of riding shotgun on that journey to navigate those complications by combining those two industries, which we're super excited about.
What are some of the advantages outside of the difficulty of going with a franchise model to get into the space as opposed to kind of wandering into the forest by yourself and hoping that you can make your way in this industry? As you said, it's super big, it's super fun, but it's super new. So there's a lot of things to figure out.
Yeah, even the smartest folks understand business. Cannabis is different. Compliance is different. Even getting a license to get into the darn industry is different. And all of those come with hurdles that the average Joe just can't overcome. And so for us, the advantage is kind of at its core of all of franchising, but specifically with cannabis, if our job is to help navigate the complications, and cannabis has more complications than anybody else or any other industry, then it's a perfect match. And so the advantage would be helping to have a team. We have a collective 120 years of legal cannabis experience and almost 50 of franchising. And having that depth of bench behind you to navigate those complications, I just don't know how you do it without that.
What type of person or persons do you guys look for? Because I imagine, much like the license process, you guys don't just take anybody. So how do you find somebody that comes into your ecosystem?
Yeah, that's a great question. So it's really about finding a good cultural fit. Honestly, we want to make sure that we're working with the right people. The potential win and upside of this industry is so huge, but we're building something special from a branding standpoint as well. So we go through a really pretty thorough vetting process because we have to make sure that these folks like us and that we like them, that they're financially capable of doing this. This is not an inexpensive thing to do, and lending is not easy. So we want to really make sure that we're getting to know one another through a mutually kind of beneficial investigation process so that we can come out the other side with a plan where we're all rowing the same direction and make a good decision about one another.
You guys made a move with Item 9 Labs, which gives you what's known as vertical integration, which I am very excited about, because when you're talking about this experience of going from one location to the next location and having this same experience, this really is a driver for that. So can you talk about that acquisition and the power of vertical integration?
Yeah, so the merger of these two worlds, Item 9 Labs and Unity Road, is incredible, and one that I'm really, really excited about. And so what we've done is partner with a group out of Phoenix, Arizona, that are just superheroes when it comes to actual product and cultivation. And so everything that we know about dispensaries and how to navigate vendor relationships and supply chain and all of that is great. But that consistency that you talked about with product is not just consistently, but consistently the best product on the market. That's Item 9. Those guys are doing unbelievable things that are really pioneering in their niches of the industry. So together, it's this really extraordinary group of folks with all of that depth of bench we talked about earlier that understand not only how to grow it, how to process it, but when you can't cross state lines, that relationship for how you navigate those vendors and how you set up those relationships. And not only do we have Item 9 products in our stores, but we have other vendors as well, right? And so being able to control that whole piece and have expertise in how you set up those relationships is going to be key to our franchisee success.
One of the things that fascinates me about Unity Road and this franchise model is one of the most interesting spaces in cannabis is what is known as the Cana curious audience, right? These are people that won't go into the black or gray market, but they're interested, but they have no idea where to start. So I would imagine that this gives you a leg up, because if I know the experience that I'm going to get, this makes it so that as I bump into these stores, I go, very similar to my McDonald's example earlier. As you're traveling across the country, if you don't know where to eat, that's sort of their plan. You know that you're going to get a hamburger. It's going to taste like this. It's going to cost this. Is that kind of a fair competitive advantage for you guys?
Absolutely it is. And I think even furthermore, it's about education, right? So to your point, this Canna Curious crowd, the buyer has changed, right? So we have extraordinarily high and consistent product, high quality and consistent product. So the everyday users, the heavy users, they love us. But it's that Canna Curious crowd, right? It's the one where my buddies are coming in for a golf tournament, and we come from a state that doesn't have cannabis, and we want to go in for the novelty, and we want to experience the product for the weekend. There's a couple different experiences you can have. You can have that one-off experience that might be good, or you might get shanked on the way out, or you can have a consistent experience where not only do you know you're going to get high quality product, but you can be educated. And that's a really key component of this industry right now, is educating users to become loyal customers. And you have to do that by understanding what they're trying to accomplish, asking the right questions, giving them that kind of consultative approach so that they have not only a customer experience that'll keep them coming back, but then a product experience that keeps them interested in the industry at all.
You talked about the knowledge base, but I said to you right before we started, one of the most powerful things from a franchisee, right? Somebody who's in your ecosystem, is your website has some of the best blogs on this industry I have seen. And so I want to talk about how you craft those, kind of the guidelines to doing that. And more importantly, the breadth of knowledge, because you've got blog posts that cover almost the entire country, topic by topic by topic.
Yeah, so for us, as kind of pioneers in the industry, our job, we feel a responsibility to educate everybody who wants to know anything about this. The more we all know about this plant and the miracle things that happens on the medical side, and also the really fun things that happen on the recreational side, the more people know, the more likely we are to help drive a shift in that stigma of the industry. The more likely we are to have prepared investors and prepared business owners who want to enter this industry safely. And so for us, because we have this incredible depth of bench, we not only cultivate the best product, but we cultivate the best people. And we do that by finding and educating and sparing no expense and driving the best team in cannabis. And then we just want to share that knowledge with the world. And so, some people say, gosh, you're putting out information that your competitors can use or that people should be paying for. And they're probably right. But we feel this social and industry responsibility to just share some of what we know to help people understand how awesome this industry really is.
So let's talk about this industry, because in a couple of your blog posts, you've alluded there's some very exciting parts of the country that seem to be coming over to the green side, so to speak, New Mexico being one of them, New York being another one. What are you guys seeing nationwide as the trends for 2021 and leading into 2022 that perhaps, people in the Michigan industry can glean from and know A, how to use you guys, and B, what to expect as we go forward.
Yeah. So as I promised earlier, I would use the word complicated. It is complicated because it varies so wildly from market to market, from what we have going here in Colorado that's been going for 10, 11 years to states that are completely and utterly illegal. And so that variation in and of itself is tough to navigate. But what we're seeing is a huge shift. And I think that shift is coming from lots of different places, one of which is 2020 was rough, right? It was rough on a lot of businesses. And so what does that mean at a political level? Well, it means state budgets that have been decimated because the tax revenue that has been funded typically from businesses that are now at diminished capacity or out of business, it's not there. But that money is still needed. And so there's great sound bites all over the place from different governors saying, how have we deemed illegal what other folks have deemed essential? And now we're going here in Colorado boasting, record sales tax revenue, and they're going, oh, we're hurting so much. So I think really it's becoming a solution to that problem, which is driving a lot of change and opening a lot of eyes to what's happening in other markets. And then as you dig in, you start seeing what it's done to combat the opioid crisis and how you're providing medicine to people with an amazing array of needs that really cannabis is a huge solution for, and what it's just doing to flood infrastructure money and tax revenue to impart real change in communities.
As you said a second ago, you're in Colorado. You've been in this space, this legalized space for, let's say, a decade. So I'm interested because you used the word stigma earlier. Can you kind of give us some sort of Nostradamus view, because you're a little bit further along than most of the country, if not all of the country. What does that innovation curve look like, and what does the stigma look like as you get deeper into this? You get 5 years in or 10 years in. How does that change? Specific to Colorado, and what do you think will happen in, let's say, Michigan, where we just did it, and so forth and so on?
Yeah, so it's really interesting because the more kind of conservative, and I don't mean political, just conservative
Sure.
a state is, and the further away from this you are, the worse that stigma is. And so, I mean, I talk to people all the time that ask me, am I going to go to jail? Or, boy, when Colorado started this, crime must have gone crazy. It's like, no, none of that happened. People are stoned all the time here in Colorado. That's not true. Just like, we still have bars and liquor stores here, and people aren't drunk all the time, right? I mean, there are people who are using this for such amazing ways to cope and just deal with the world that I think that is driving a lot of the change. And that doesn't necessarily make it medicinal versus recreational. It just means that people are exploring this product in ways to accomplish whatever their goals may be, whether it's PTSD or a girls' night out and everything in between. And so as that becomes more and more accepted, I think the stigma changes, the stigma drops, and landlords become more open, consumers become more open, the opposition becomes a little bit more quiet. What I'll say from a time frame standpoint is even states who come on board that have been really wary of this, when stores open up, there are lines around the block. And so there isn't this nice slow burn ramp up. When you open a dispensary, people come. And the more high end, the more safe, the more well lit, the more educational and consultative those are, the more that comfort level goes up with consumers.
And so I'll leave you with this question. What is in store for Unity Road in 2021 and 2022, right? We're coming, like you said, we're coming out of this rough year, but in many states where it was already legal, cannabis was deemed essential. So those businesses saw record sales, right? So what do you guys see in 2021 and 2022?
So the short answer is world domination, but what does that mean? It means that we have an opportunity here. We are uniquely positioned to help people achieve something that they have not been able to achieve before. The numbers in this industry you're talking about generational wealth. You're talking about helping people get into a path to change their families and communities long term. We take that responsibility very seriously. And so we see that growth continuing to develop across new states and continuing to normalize in some of the newer states that are ahead of the curve and that have already come on board. And so I think we're just going to see more and more people enjoy this product in ways that can be pretty profound, pretty life-changing, both from a consumer standpoint, but from a business ownership standpoint too, to be able to provide some safety for entrepreneurs who are looking to get into this industry and really have an impact on their lives, their families, and their communities. We're really excited to be at the forefront of that.
Justin Livingston, Vice President of Franchise Development, Unity Road. My friend, this was a blast. Thank you so much for the time.
Yeah, it's been fun. I appreciate you.
And there he goes. A big thanks to Justin from Unity Road for giving us an insight into the franchise opportunities in the cannabis industry. Our event is March 11th. If you'd like to sign up, the link is in the show notes. And until next time, I am Eric Hultgren, and this is the Everything is Marketing podcast.